Hey, this is Adam with the Adam Wines Guitar Academy. In this video, we're going to be talking about the second part of the Ride the Lightning guitar solo. In the previous video, we took a look at the rhythm, so now we're going to have a lot of fun looking at the solo. Real quick, here's a short of me playing it, so you have this part in your ear. Okay, so let's break this down. The rhythm that is happening is the part that goes. If you recall, that was all around the F sharp power chord, F sharp tonal center, however you want to think about that. So that's very useful to know as we look at this lick in this particular measure. So I like most of this on my neck pickup. So we're going to take the pickup switch and it's going to come all the way to the top, which activates the top pickup on your guitar most of the time. So anyway, this lick kind of sounds something like that. And it's very pentatonic. And to be specific, it is a little bit of a blues lick coming out of an F sharp minor pentatonic scale. So the scale that is being kind of thought of here is the one that is up on the 14th fret. And it looks like this. You might be familiar with that scale. Most guitar players learn it in A first. But we're just taking that shape, moving it up to the 14th fret for F sharp, because we're playing this up high on the guitar like that. So with that in mind, it's very cool to know that that's what Kirk Hammett is thinking over the rhythm. It makes total sense. Metallica is doing an F sharp tonal center, so we're using an F sharp minor pentatonic. So anyway, this lick is going to start off with 17 to 14, and it's going to be a pull off. So you're going to pick and then flick your finger off, basically, like that. So in other words, I'm not picking both notes. So one more time, I'm going to pick the note here with my pinky. I'm going to pull my pinky off. I'm going to kind of fling it to get a nice pull-off sound. And as you notice, my first finger was just holding 14 down the whole time. So after that's done, you're going to then play 17 on the B string. And then you're going to play 14 again on the high E string. So far we have. And then it's going to do another 17 to 14 pull-off on the E string. And then it's going to do 17 and 14 on the B string. And then here it's going to do 16 on the G string with a full bend. And then 14 on the B string again. And then 17 to 14 pull off on the B string. Followed by a 17 to 14 pull off on the high E string. And then 17 and 14 on the B string, but not a pull off. You're just going to pick the notes. Now, note-wise, we have A going to F sharp, going to E, going to F sharp, going to A, to F sharp, to E, going to C sharp. Then it's a B being bent up to a C sharp. And then it's going to C sharp again. And then 17 to 14 is E to C sharp. And then A to F sharp. And then E to C sharp. And again, those are all straight from the F sharp minor pentatonic scale, so nothing weird there. The notes in the F sharp minor pentatonic scale are F sharp, A, B, C sharp, E, and then the notes just repeat. Now, this is a very fast lick. It's all 16th notes. So that being said, you may find that the bend is very difficult to do at this high of a tempo. So it's, you have a decision to make, basically. You can try to go for it, or you can just kind of hit the note in passing. It is so fast that hardly anyone will notice whatever decision you make there, but just to be very, transparent and honest there. So at a slow tempo, it's easy to get the bend, but when you're playing it at the 16th notes, at the, the 150, 153 beats per minute that the song is at, it's very difficult to get that bend. So rhythmically speaking, to count it out, it goes 1 E and 2 E and 3. So right there, the little bend there is supposed to only last for 3, not like 3E or 3 and or anything like that. Literally just 3, because then you're immediately going to the E of the beat. So E and 4E and so once again, 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and at really high tempos, that bend is very challenging to get that. I was able to get it, but it's not easy. So just keep that in mind. Have a little grace with yourself on the bend there. Now, finger-wise, I'm using my pinky a lot and my index. Some people might find the ring finger here to be easier because the frets are so small. So whatever your preference is, but I find myself pinky to index quite a bit. The ring finger on the 16 and index and pinky and all that for the rest. Picking-wise, I'm doing a pick, a down pick, and a pull-off. Then I'm doing an up pick, then a down pick, then an up pick with the pull-off, and then an up pick, and then a down pick, and then an up pick with the bend, and a down, and then an up with a pull-off, and then a down with a pull-off, and then an up, and then a down. I'm not using alternate picking most of the time. I use economy directional picking. That's my personal preference, but if you want to use alternate picking, that's totally cool. The main difference with alternate picking and economy/directional picking is alternate picking is typically going to be kind of like outside picking. So the pick is always kind of going on the outside, like as you're alternating. Like say I'm alternating between strings 1 and 2, or 2 and 1, or B and E. The pick is going to go on the outside. In other words, it's going down. Let's say I'm going down like on the B, and then I'm coming up on the E. Directional picking is the opposite. They kind of call it inside picking, so it would more be up, down. So as you can see, my hand's doing less motion with the directional picking as opposed to alternate picking. You can see my hand's doing a little bit more of a motion. Now, the alternate picking typically sounds more aggressive, so even though directional picking can be smoother and easier and faster in the long run, it might be more fun for you to do alternate picking. So, pick the one that you like to do. I personally enjoy directional picking. I find it easier and makes my hands do less work, but that's me. Okay, so moving on to the next measure. This is the part of the rhythm where it's on a D5 chord, the part that James is doing. And then it briefly comes to there for a second. But this is really emphasizing that D5 chord, maybe the D tonal center. So that's nice to know as we're going into the next measure here. And the next measure is something like this. Same thing with the bend. It's very tricky to get these bends at this high tempo, but I'll play it anyway. This is still kind of a blues lick in F sharp minor pentatonic. It's really continuing from the first measure. So these first two measures together, create the, this whole lick that's happening. But breaking this measure down, we have 16 with the bend, and then we have 14 on the B string, and then we have 17 to 14 with the pull off, and then 16 to 14 with the pull off on the G string. I'm doing ring and index for that one. We're going to grab 16 on the D string, 14 on the G, 16 to 14 on the G with a pull off, 16 to 14 on the D picked, 16 on A, 14 on D, and 16 to 14 with a pull off on D. Note-wise, we have a B being bent into a C sharp again, and then a C sharp, an E, and a C sharp, a B and an A F sharp, an A to a B and an A, and then F sharp and E, and then C sharp, and then E, and F sharp to E again. Now, picking wise, with my directional picking that I personally like to do, because I'm coming off of the B string, and I did a down pick, I'm going to do an up pick to grab that note there. And then I'm going to do a down pick on the 14, and then an up with a pull off, and then an up pick with the pull off again, and then an up pick, and then a down pick on the G, and then an up pick, and then an up pick on 16, down pick to 14, up to 16 on the A string, down on 14, and then 16 with an up and a pull off. So my picking, once again, is directional picking. I'm doing a lot of inside picking is another way to think of it. So where a lot of guitar players might do down and up, I am personally going up and down. For me, it helps me play faster and it feels smoother, and it's in that vein of economy picking, it's economical, so my hands are doing less work. But again, if you like alternate picking, go for it. There's no reason not to. If you enjoy that kind of picking and that aggressive sound, absolutely go for it. Okay, so now rhythmically speaking, it's just all 16th notes. And once again, that bend is very fast at the high tempo, so be mindful. If you have to skip the bend, no worries. It's not easy. But counting out loud is slow tempo. We have 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and like that. And we put the first two measures together. Okay. And then as we come into the next measure, it is still continuing the lick. The lick is still going on. It is still a lick in F sharp minor pentatonic, though it is going to go out of the shape a little bit. It's going to move positions, which is pretty neat. Now, the rhythm guitar part that is happening here is the A sliding into the B. And the rhythm part happening here is that A sliding to the B, but the B5 is really kind of the tonal center happening here in this particular measure. Okay, now to the lead itself. We have 16 going to 14 with the pull off, sliding down into 12. So this is where the position shift happens. Then we're going to pick 12 again. Then we're going to pick 14 and pull off to 12. And then 14 on the E string. Then 12 on the A string. And we're going to play 14 on the A, sliding into 16. Back into the original position. And then 14 on the D string. 16, and then 14 on the G, like that. Now, note-wise, we have C sharp going to B, sliding down to A, another A, a B to an A, and then F sharp, A, B again, sliding into C sharp, and then E, F sharp, and A. So anyway, those are the notes there. Rhythmically speaking, it is a little different now, which is interesting. I'm going to take this really slow. We have 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. And so we have some eighth notes at the end. So it starts to slow down a little bit. And picking wise, I'm doing an up pick on 16. Then a pull off to 14, slide down to 12. And then a down pick on 12, and then an up pick on 14 with a pull off to 12, an up pick on 14 on the E, a down pick on 12 on the A, an up pick on 14, sliding into 16, and then a down pick on 14 with an up pick on 16, and a down pick on the 14. All right, so talking about the next measure, rhythmically speaking, this is just the B5, the part that goes like that. So the only thing really happening here is a B5 chord. So that's nice to know as we look at the solo. So this lick here, this part's a lot more melodic than the other ones. It's not quite as shred-like, not as burning fast, kind of slowing down more into a melody. But anyway, we have 16 being pulled off into 14 on the G string, then 16 on the D string, and then 14 to 16 on the G with a hammer on this time, and then 14 on the G, 16 on the G, and then 14 on the B. And this is still coming from the F sharp minor pentatonic scale. The notes we have B and A, going to F sharp, going to A to B again, with another A, and a B, and a C sharp. Not too bad. And picking wise, we're going to do an up pick on 16, with a pull off to 14. We're going to do an up pick on 16, a down pick on 14 on the G, hammer onto 16, up pick on 14, down pick on 16, down pick on 14. All right. Now, the next measure is actually kind of starting the rhythm over again, so it's doing this thing. An F sharp 5 tonal center again, and it's a bunch of bends. So before we kind of talk about that measure, what I would recommend you do is really master the first four measures we've talked about so far. Take it at a slow tempo. It's mainly 16th notes. The trickiest part is, in my opinion, what fingering you're going to use. You know, if you're going to use your ring or if you're going to use your pinky a lot, how you want to pick, if you want to use alternate picking or more of an economical picking approach. And then being good with pull-offs and then grabbing these bends at these fast tempos is the hardest part. And again, you may want to forego the bends at the highest tempo, but you know, ultimately I'll leave that decision in your hands and see what works for you. But yeah, pretty much you just want to practice each measure one at a time at a slow tempo. Maybe then put measures 1 and 2 together, etc. So if I had to learn this over again, I would probably play the first measure several times at a very slow tempo. And I would just sit and do that over and over and over. Then I would isolate the second measure. Over and over and over. Then I would put the 2 measures together. And I would go even slower than that, like painfully slow, until I was really comfortable, and then gradually get the tempo up until it's at tempo. Then I would isolate the third measure and just sit and do that over and over. Just over and over and over until that was comfortable. Then maybe I would put the 3 together, or maybe I would just put 3 and 4 together for a bit, because measure 4 is not too crazy. You know, it's just the melodic part. So I might just sit and put measures 3 and 4 together for a while. Just over and over and over. And then finally put all 4 measures together. That's how I would practice if I had to do it all over again. So that can take quite a bit of time, depending if you have played lead guitar or not. Like if this is kind of one of your first guitar solos that you're learning, you know, that whole thing could take you a month potentially, just those 4 measures, and that wouldn't be weird. There'd be nothing wrong with that at all. You know, you're asking your hand to do something new, so it's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's move on to that next measure. As we mentioned, the rhythm riff has essentially started over again back on the F-sharp 5. So what's fun about this measure is these are bends. They're full bends, and then they come back down, which is nice. I like the sound when a bend goes up and comes back down. You can hear it going both ways. I think it's a very nice sound. So nice and slow. I'm going to use my ring finger. That way I have other 2 fingers to put behind it to give it some extra strength. So we're going to bend it until we hear it's hit the correct pitch, until we hear a full whole step. And then we're going to let it come back down. So one time will sound like this. Then we'll do it again. And then one more time. That's fun. At a slow tempo, it almost sounds like a police siren. So that's quite fun. So after those 3 bends and releases, you're then going to play 14 on the B string all by itself. Then we're going to play 17 on the E string and then another full bend. And it's going to pull over into the next measure. Now, once again with bends, you need to really make sure that they sound correct, especially this measure, because these are slower bends. They're not blowing through so fast in the other measures. We really need to hear these bends correctly. So don't skip over this part. Really take your time on this measure. Make sure you're bending to the correct pitch. So when you're bending on 17 in the B, which is an E, you need to make sure it bends to an F sharp, which is 2 frets over. So when you do the bend, check yourself 2 frets over to make sure it's right. Same thing with the bend that's on the E string here. This A note is being bent into a B basically. So check that note there. Make sure it sounds correct. And that was the 14 over here that isn't bent. That was a C sharp, by the way. So anyway, just practice this. Focus more on the bends here, okay? Now, rhythmically speaking, this measure is all quarter notes except for the end, which are eighth notes. So let's take the rhythm from measure 3 going into measure 4 so we can feel the rhythm a little bit more. So we have 1 E and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3. Now 14 is an eighth note, so it's going to be 4 and that bend here is on the and of 4. So one more time. We have 1E and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and, which goes into the next measure like that. So those, once again, that measure is E's being bent into F sharp with an A being bent into B, all still kind of coming from that F sharp minor pentatonic scale. Now the next measure is happening over the D5 part of the rhythm, that part. So once again, it's still continuing the bend. So in the other measure, we had that 17 being bent into 19, and we're still having that holdover from the previous measure. So it's just kind of ringing out, and it rings out for a quarter note. So when you bend it, it's on the and of 4 from the previous measure, and then on this measure, it lasts through beat 1. So like and of 4 right there, going to beat 1. Then on beat 2, you bend the 17 again with a full bend, and this time you don't let it come back down. So this time with the bends, we're just going to bend them up, and we're not going to hear it come back down. And then we do it again. And then on the last bend here, we will hear it come back down. And then we're going to play the F sharp or the 14 there on the E string. So if we were to put measures 3 and 4 together, it would sound like this, and I'll count it out loud. It would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and like that. So interestingly, the previous measure, we could hear the bends come back down, and then that one, all of a sudden, we don't hear them come back down until the end there. So that's interesting. And again, those notes are just A's being bent into a B, and then coming to that F sharp at the end. All notes contained in F sharp minor pentatonic as well. Now, after that, we start to get into more of a fast lick again, which is fun. And we're still in F sharp minor pentatonic land for that lick. We are on the part again in the rhythm. It starts on the A sliding into the B. And then it goes into the B5 again. So we're basically on the last two measures of the rhythm, like the end of one sequence of the rhythm, basically. Okay, so this lick, we'll talk about the frets and the strings first. So we have 17 going to 14 with a pull-off. And then 17 on the B string, 14 on the E, 17 to 14 on the E with a pull-off, 17 and 14 on the B with picking, 16 on the G, 14 on the B, 17 and 14 on the B with the pull-off, 16 and 14 on the G, 16 on the D, and then 14 on the G. Picking wise, I'm going down pick, pull off, up pick, down, up with a pull off, up on the B, down, up, down, up with a pull off, up, down, up, and then down. That's how I'm choosing to pick that with my directional picking technique that I prefer. And then note wise, we have A going to F sharp, and an E, F sharp again, A and F sharp, E and C sharp, B, C sharp, E and C sharp, B and A, F sharp, and A. Once again, all notes in F sharp minor pentatonic. Rhythmically, it's all 16th notes, pretty simple. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and like that. And then the next measure, it slows down, a little bit more melodic, some bends happening. It's going to start with a bend on 16 of the G string, and it's a full bend, so it needs to be bent until it sounds like 18. Then the next note is 14 on the G, and it's a quarter bend. Quarter bends are very strange. You're not really bending it into any particular pitch there, because a quarter tone from fret 14 wouldn't even be a half step. So it's like half of a half step. It's kind of strange. It almost sounds wrong. You know what I mean? See there, that would be you can hear that would have been a half step. So I was bending in between that. So it's very strange. And then it's going to be 16 on the D string. and you kind of slide down a little bit, and then we slide into 17 on the B string, and then pick 14 on the E. And note-wise, this 16 here is a B, and we're bending it into a C sharp. And then the A note with a quarter bend. I don't really have a note that I can really give you except to say that's an A with a quarter bend. Then we have F sharp, and then it slides down. Then we have an E up here, and an F sharp. So still an F sharp minor pentatonic land. Rhythmically speaking, it goes 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and. So really just 3 quarter notes and 2 eighth notes. So if I put these two measures together, we have 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2, 3, 4 and. So not too bad rhythmically. All right. Now the next couple of measures are some of my favorite in this particular part of the solo. This is a really fun lick. And rhythmically we've started over again, so we're kind of in the one playthrough of the rhythm part. But back to the beginning of it. So we're kind of like, on the F sharp 5 kind of tonal center, going into the D, and then we have the A that slides into the B5 and the B5 again. So this lick and these couple of measures are still an F sharp minor pentatonic, but it is hitting an extension like outside of the scale shape. So I'll point that out as we're playing it. So I'm actually going to use my middle finger now instead of the pinky, because I'm going to have to use my pinky to go outside of the shape. So to start, we're going to go 17 to 14 with a pull off. And then I'm going to grab 17 with my middle finger on the B string. And then we're going to hit 14 on the E, and then 17 and 14 again with the pull off. And now here is we're going outside a little bit to grab the 19 up here and pulling off to 14. And then you immediately pull from 17 to 14 again, and then hit 17 on the B. And then we hit 14 on the E, and then 17 to 14 pull off, and then 19 to 14 pull off. You may want to practice the 17 to 14 and 19 to 14 pull off, because that is kind of the heart of this part of the solo. You might want to just get your hand used to that, and then obviously in between, a lot of the times you'll be grabbing 17 down here. So nice and slow. It's all 16th notes, so we'll take it really, really slow. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Now picking wise, this is what I like to do. Once again, feel free to use alternate picking if you prefer, but this is how I am playing this. I'm doing a down pick with a pull off, and an up pick, down, up with the pull off, down with the pull off, up with a pull off, up on the B string, down on 14 on the E, up with a pull off, and a down with a pull off. It's a really fun pattern once you see it and can feel it. So let's move on to measure 2. It's very similar. So we have 17 to 14 with a pull off again. And then 17 on the B, 14 on the E, 17 to 14, 19 to 14, 17 to 14. Those 3 pull-offs in a row. 17 on the B, 14 on the E, and then 17 to 14 and 19, 14 again. Very, very fun. Picking wise, I'm starting with an up pick, the pull-off, then an up pick on the B, down on 14, up and then down and then up, and then up again on the B, down on 14, and then up and then down with those pull-offs, like that. Now, note-wise, we have A, F sharp, E on the B string, and then B up here. And those are really the notes in the lick, just being played in, over and over with the pattern. And once again, this is basically coming from the top of the pentatonic scale, F sharp to be specific, but is going out of the position temporarily to grab the B up here, which would be considered in the next part of the pentatonic scale. So it's only borrowing that one note and coming right back, which is pretty cool. And it's very fun, and it sounds awesome at a higher tempo. So if I were to put these two measures together at a slow tempo and counting it out loud, it would go 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and that. So once again, just take your time, go really, really slow, and then build speed over time. And before you know it, you'll be playing this at the correct tempo before you know it. So, okay, going into the next measure. It has a similar pull-off thing happening, but the rhythm is changing into triplets, so the rhythm changes quite a bit from before. But let's just talk about the notes first. So I'm actually going back into my normal pinky playing for this lick, and we are doing 17 to 14 with a pull-off, 17 on the B, 14 on the E, 17 to 14 on the B twice, 16 on the G, 14 on the B, 16 to 14 on the G. Picking wise, I'm doing a down pick with a pull off, an up and then a down, an up with a pull off, a down with the pull off, and then an up on the G, down on the B, and then up again with a pull off. Now, rhythmically speaking, these are triplets, as mentioned before, so that the feel of it changes. So at a nice slow tempo, it is triplet, 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 triplet. So you're coming from the 16th note rhythm in the previous measure to slowing down into triplets. It's a very interesting feel when you're playing it in context. So let me count that out loud between the two measures here. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and triplet, 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 triplet. Very interesting to go from 16th notes to triplets like that. It's very cool. And this measure we've been talking about is also from F sharp minor pentatonic as A and F sharp and E, F sharp, E to C sharp, a B, C sharp, B and A. So same notes from all the other licks basically in terms of the scale. And then this next measure kind of slows it down a little bit more melodic. So it starts off with 16 to 14 on the G with a pull off, 16 on the D, 14 on the G and 16, 14 on the D with some vibrato, and then 14 and 16 on the D. And the notes are B and A, F sharp, A and B, E, E and F sharp, still in F sharp minor pentatonic land. Now, picking wise, I'm going to do a down pick, up pick, down, up, down, up. Okay. Notes are B and A, F sharp, A and B, E with the vibrato, E and F sharp. Just a very melodic use of the F sharp minor pentatonic scale. Rhythmically speaking, it starts off with a triplet, so it is triplet, but then it's eighth notes on beat 2, 2 and beat 3 with the vibrato as a quarter note, and then 2 more eighth notes, 4 and. Coming out of the other measure, if you recall, we had triplet, 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 2 and 3, 4 and. Very, very interesting rhythmically. Very cool. Now, in the next set here, it is starting off pretty melodically, and the rhythm has started over again. So we're back on that F sharp 5 again. So it's another playthrough of the rhythm riff that James is doing. And the first measure here that we'll look at. So this measure is very melodic and is actually using the actual F sharp minor scale now, not just the pentatonic, because you're going to see that a D note gets thrown in. But let's talk about the frets first. So we have 14 and 16 on the G, 14 and 15 on the B, 14 to 15 to 14, hammer and pull off, 16 on the G, 14 on the B, 15 on the B. Note-wise, we have A and B, C sharp. Now the D note here, that's what's making this more of a normal minor scale. And then C sharp to D to C sharp. And then B, and then C sharp and D. Just like that. Picking-wise, I'm going down, up, down, hammer, pull, up, down, up. Rhythmically, relatively not too bad, but we do have a 16th note triplet happening there. So we go 1 and 2 and triplet and 4 and. So that triplet's faster than your typical 8th note triplet due to it being 16th note triplets. Then it continues on with this melodic idea using the normal F sharp minor scale, with some D notes in there that weren't there before. So it goes 17 on the B string, 14 on the E, 15 to 14 with the pull off, and then all on the B string we have 17, 15, 14, 15, 17. And you can really hear it there. We're not in pentatonic land anymore. We're very much in a melodic use of the minor scale. Picking wise, I'm going down, up, down with the pull off, up, down, up, down, up. Like that. The notes are E to F sharp, G to F sharp, E, D, C sharp, D, and E. Rhythmically, not too bad. We do have some 16th notes, though, to be mindful of. So we have 1 and 2E and 3 and 4 and like that. So these two measures together, 1 and 2 and triplet and 4 and 1 and 2E and 3 and 4 and. All right. Now, the next part is quite fun. It's a lot of triplets, and it's a fun ascending scale sequence. It's very, very fun to play. We're going to have to move positions a lot as well, which is fun. It's all on the E string. We're going to go 14, 15, 17. I'm going to go down, up, down. I'm going to go index, middle, pinky as well. Then we shift over. We have 15, 17, 19, index, middle, pinky. And then we have another shift where we're on 17. We're going to go 17, 19, 20, index, ring, pinky. And then we have 19, 20, 22. I'm doing index, middle, pinky. You could do ring too. The frets are getting tiny. Now, picking wise, I'm going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, like that. So pretty much alternate picking there. When you don't have a string that you're going to, directional picking basically becomes alternate picking. Okay, and the notes are scalar notes. So we have F sharp, G, and A, then G, A, B, and then A, B, C, and then B, C, D. Now, what's interesting here is the C sharp has disappeared. So if you notice, I mentioned a C note, right? So because of where we're going to go in the next measure with the bend, it appears as if we have come back to a normal E minor scale. So that is super interesting. So before we go to the next measure, though, these are just triplets. So if you were to count this, it would go triplet, 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 like that. So take your time there. This part is hard because the frets are tiny, so it's just a matter of getting your hand used to being in such a cramped area on the guitar. So just keep that in mind, take your time, and you'll have it before you know it. Now, coming into the next measure, which gives us the clue that I think we've come back to the E minor land, is we're bending this 22nd fret on the E string, and we're bending it a full step, which would make it sound like 24. So it's a D note being bent into an E, and it's done 3 times, like that. And then it does a 17 and 19, which is an A and a B at the end, and those are 8th notes. So rhythmically speaking, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So if we put these measures together, triplet, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, and. And you'll notice with my fingers, I'm not always using the pinky. Sometimes I use the ring. It's just what feels comfortable in the moment. Either one is fine. But like I said, when you get so cramped up here, I think sometimes the ring is easier. All right, now let's move on to the next measure. The 17 and 19 kind of set us up. So now that our hand will be kind of like this in the area that we want it to be. And these are kind of like descending triplets. It's very cool. And we have 21, 19, 17. And then we have 19, 17, 15. 17, 15, 14. And then 15, 14, 12. Like that. That is how I personally like to play this. If you look online, you'll see different variations, especially on this part. And the reason I think it is because there's a harmony happening here when it was recorded. So the tabs get a little they start to disagree if you look at a couple different tabs for this part. But this is how I like to play it. It makes the most sense to me from a couple of standpoints. It's also easier to play the way that I have it here. So if you know another way and it sounds better to you, feel free to play it that way. But this is how I enjoy playing this part. Now, interestingly, the notes here are C sharp, B, and A, B, A, and G, A, G, and F sharp, G, F sharp, and E. So what's interesting here is it used the C sharp, which kind of brings us back into F sharp minor land, which is interesting. So we were in E minor a second ago, and now it's kind of using in an F sharp scale. So that's very neat. It's very cool to see that. And when I pick this, it'll just be basically alternate picking. So it'll be down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, like that. And then the next measure continues along with this same idea of a descending scale sequence in triplets. And it goes 17, 15, 14, or A, G, and F sharp. And then it goes 15, 14, 12, G, F sharp, E. And it goes 14, 12, 10, F sharp, E, D. And then it goes E, D, and a C sharp again, 12, 10, 9. So it's still thinking of F sharp minor land in this particular instance, which is interesting. So really the last two measures before we come into the chord or the whammy bar part that's about to happen in a second is just a descending scale sequence in F sharp minor, which is really cool. So, and it's all triplets. So nice and slow, alternate picking, down, up, 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 like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the tricky part when you put these two measures together, so you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, is right here. You don't continue. You actually come back up a note and then continue down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the trickiest part, in my opinion, is to remember to come back for a second. And if we count the triplets, triplet, 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 triplet. So a lot of hand movement there, and keep the picking tight. You know, just alternate picking is fine, and just remember you have to come back as you come back down. So very cool, very interesting. And then we're going to finish with a chord. I like to play a chord here, and then I use the whammy bar to kind of creep it up. It's like seems to be like a quarter step or so. It's real easy. Basically, we are playing a F5 chord, and then we're going to take our whammy bar and just kind of raise it towards the sky a little bit, right about there or so. You can really hear it when you're playing it with the recording. Kirk Hammett may just be playing a single note. There could be a lot of things. Typically, when you have something like this, the recording is always going to be more dense than what they might do live. So for me personally, I think it sounds good to play this chord and use the whammy bar there. Your guitar may not have a whammy bar, so don't worry too much if you don't. It's not a big deal. You know, it's more important to learn these notes and the music theory and the technique and everything. Now, rhythmically speaking, on this whole section with the triplets that are descending at a fast tempo, and then this chord, this is the part that James does the different part of the rhythm guitar at the end. So this is after the typical riff has been played 4 times, and then it's ending with a A5 3 times, and then the G5, and then it's where that F5 gets held out. And so the part that we were just talking about is an F5 played up an octave, and then we use the whammy bar there. That's why I like to play the F5 there. It matches the lower F5, and I just think that it sounds good. Okay, so that was quite a bit. That was a very dense thing to go through. Once again, really take your time, go really slow. This video, as you're going through it, it can take you a month, a couple months just to learn this, depending on your skill level. So don't be discouraged. Just have fun with it. Go nice and slow. These are great pentatonic licks, and this has some great descending single string shredding as well happening, as well as that fun hammer pull off lick that we had that kind of went out of the scale for a second. So those are some really great techniques to work on, and you'll find very similar licks in other guitar solos. So it's a very, very good use of your time to learn this. So anyway, once again, my name is Adam with the Adam Wise Guitar Academy. I am available for private lessons, and if you're interested, you can contact me directly, and my contact details are in the description.